In 2026, thousands of Americans will lose trips. Not because of visas, not because of airlines, but because they chose the wrong passport renewal method. No alerts, no warning emails, just a quiet mistake that only shows up when you're already at the airport, or worse, days before a flight you can't afford to miss. If you've ever renewed a US passport, you already know the feeling. Too many forms, conflicting advice online, different rules depending on who you ask, and the constant fear that one unchecked box could undo everything. Now, the State Department says there's a simpler way. Online renewal. Paperless. No post office lines. No mailing your passport away. For some people, it really is faster and cleaner. For others, it's the exact reason their travel plans collapse. And that difference comes down to details most travelers never hear explained clearly. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which renewal path protects your passport and which one quietly puts it at risk. Because there is a moment in the online process where people unintentionally cancel their own passport. They don't realize it when it happens, but it changes everything. We'll get there. Here's exactly how this is going to work. First, we're going to clarify who can actually renew a US passport online in 2026. Not who thinks they can, not who was able to a few years ago, but who the system will accept right now. Then we're going to talk about who absolutely should not use the online renewal system, even if it looks convenient. For some travelers, clicking the online option is the fastest way to create delays they didn't see coming. After that, I'll walk you through the entire online renewal process, step by step. What account you need, what information has to match perfectly, where people get tripped up, and how long the system actually gives you to finish before everything disappears. We'll also cover the mistakes that quietly stall or cancel applications. These aren't dramatic errors, they're small technical missteps, timing issues, formatting details, assumptions that don't feel serious until weeks go by and nothing moves. Then we'll talk about processing times, not the optimistic estimates people repeat online, but the realistic timeline you should plan your life around. The kind of timing that matters if your passport is your only valid ID, or if travel plans are already booked. And finally, we'll cover what to do if you need to travel sooner than the system allows. Not guesses, not hope, real alternatives that work when the clock is already running. This isn't theory. This is how people are actually getting approved or quietly shut out under the current system. If you stay with me through this, you won't just know how the process works, you'll know how to choose the path that keeps your plans intact. Eligibility checklist. The decision gate. This is a point in the video where everything gets decided, because the online renewal system isn't flexible and it isn't forgiving. It's a filter, and if you don't clear every requirement, it doesn't bend, it shuts the door. So here's the rule you need to hear clearly. If you can't say yes to every single point I'm about to list, stop. Online renewal is not for you. Let's start with age. To renew a US passport online in 2026, you must be 25 years or older. Not close to it, not turning 25 later this year. If you're under that age, the system won't accept your application. Next is the passport itself. This only works for a standard 10-year tourist passport. If your passport is diplomatic, official, emergency, or issued under special circumstances, the online option is off the table. Now, timing. This is where most people get it wrong. Your passport must be expiring within the next 12 months, or it must have expired within the last 5 years. Not 2 years from now, not expired 6 years ago, within 1 year going forward, or within 5 years looking back. I'll say it again because this matters more than anything else in this process. If your passport has more than 1 year of validity left, or it expired more than 5 years ago, the online system will not work for you. Next, changes. If you need to correct or update anything on your passport, your name, your gender, your date of birth, or your place of birth, online renewal is not an option. Even if the change feels minor, even if you have documents to prove it, the online system is for renewals only, not corrections. Now let's talk about travel plans. You cannot be planning to travel internationally within the next 6 weeks. Not probably not I might cancel. If there's a chance you'll need that passport within 6 weeks, online renewal puts you at risk. And to be absolutely clear, I'm going to repeat this. No international travel in the next 6 weeks. Online renewal takes time, and during that time, you will not have a usable passport. Location matters too. You must be physically in the United States or a US territory when you apply. If you're living abroad, even with a military or government address, the online system will reject the application. And finally, you must have your passport in hand. It cannot be lost. It cannot be stolen. It cannot be damaged. If any of those apply, online renewal is not the right path. Now here's where people try to push their luck and where trouble starts. Online renewal is not something you can speed up. There is no expedited option, no paid upgrade, no workaround. Online renewals cannot be expedited, ever. If any of these rules don't fit your situation, the correct option is renewal by mail using Form DS-82. That route allows for expedited service, and in urgent cases, there are agency appointments and professional expediting options that actually work. Online renewal is convenient, but only inside very strict boundaries. Understanding that before you apply is what keeps your travel plans intact. This is also the part most people end up explaining after something goes wrong. If someone you care about travels, especially if they're over 60, these are exactly the details that keep them from getting stuck at a check-in counter with no clear answers and no quick fix. Not because they did anything careless, but because no one ever broke the rules down this plainly for them. If you're the person your family turns to when travel plans get confusing, subscribe now. Not for alerts, not for noise, but so you're not scrambling to explain a rule you never saw coming. And take a second to put it in perspective. If you're renewing for yourself, comment "me." If you're helping a parent, spouse, or another family member, comment "family." That one word says a lot about who's depending on you to get this right. Online versus traditional renewal. Most confusion around passport renewal comes from mixing two very different rules and assuming they mean the same thing. For decades, adult US passports have followed a simple standard. If your passport was issued within the last 15 years, you can usually renew it. That's the rule many Americans remember, and it's still true, but only for traditional renewal methods. Online renewal does not follow that rule. The online system operates inside a much tighter window. It doesn't care whether your passport is only a few years old. It only checks whether it's expiring within the next 12 months, or whether it expired within the last 5 years. Anything outside that window, and the system stops you cold. This is where assumptions cause problems. People hear 15 years and assume it applies everywhere. It doesn't. If you're outside the online window, you still have options, and they work. You can renew by mail using Form DS-82, which allows far more flexibility and gives you the option to request faster processing. And if travel is coming up soon, you can take a different path entirely by scheduling an appointment at a regional passport agency, where urgent renewals are handled in person. Here's the distinction worth remembering. Mail renewals are flexible. Online renewals are strict. Once you understand that difference, the rest of the process becomes much easier to choose and much harder to get wrong. Online application walkthrough. This is the part most people expect to be complicated, and it isn't, but it is exact. Once you decide the online option fits your situation, everything starts at mytravel.gov. That's the only official entry point. No third-party shortcuts, no mirror sites. If you already use login.gov for TSA PreCheck, global entry, or other federal services, you won't need to create anything new. Your existing credentials work. If you don't have an account yet, setting one up takes a few minutes. What matters more is what happens after you log in. What you'll see next is a digital version of Form DS-82. It looks familiar if you've ever renewed by mail, but the rules are tighter. The system assumes everything you type is final. There's no clerk reviewing handwriting, no margin for interpretation, and there's a clock. From the moment you begin, you have 7 days to complete the application. You can stop and come back, but only within that window. On day 8, the form disappears. No warning, no recovery. You simply start over. That's why timing matters. Start when you know you can finish. The system doesn't babysit. As you move through the form, you'll be asked to enter your passport information exactly as it appears in your current passport. Not close, not corrected, exact. Every letter must match. Every hyphen must be in the right place. Every space counts. This matters more online than it does by mail. Because you're not sending your passport in, the system relies entirely on what you type. Any mismatch can slow things down or stop the application without much explanation. Take your time here. Have your passport open in front of you. Treat this like copying legal text, not filling out a casual profile. Once the information is in correctly, the rest of the process feels straightforward. But this section, account access, the 7-day window, and precise data entry is where confidence replaces stress, and where most avoidable problems are prevented. Travel plans disclosure logic. Before any form is approved, before any passport is printed, there's a quiet question that determines everything. Do you have travel plans in the next 6 weeks? This isn't small talk, it's a sorting mechanism. Behind a desk, systems are deciding which lane you belong in: routine, time-sensitive, or urgent. If you answer casually, or worse, inaccurately, you can end up locked into the slowest process while your departure date keeps moving closer. Here's the logic. A standard renewal assumes you are not traveling within 6 weeks. That puts you into regular processing. Your application enters a long queue, and once it's there, pulling it out is difficult. Phone calls won't help, emails won't help. At that point, time, not effort, controls the outcome. That's why the 6-week rule exists, not to restrict you, but to protect the system from being overwhelmed, and to protect travelers from last-minute panic. Now, if your trip is sooner than 6 weeks, there are 3 real paths. Each one fits a different situation. First, expedited mail processing. This shortens the timeline to roughly 2 to 3 weeks. It's designed for people who still have a little breathing room but can't wait on standard timelines. Second, a regional passport agency appointment. This is for truly close travel, often within days. Processing can happen in as little as 24 to 72 hours, but access depends on availability and proof of travel. This path rewards clarity and preparation. Third, professional expediting services. These act as navigators, not miracle workers. They help route your application correctly, avoid paperwork errors, and secure limited appointment slots. Useful when time is tight and stakes are high. The key isn't urgency. The key is honest disclosure. When you state your travel plans accurately, the system places you where you actually belong. No guessing, no scrambling, no explaining a preventable delay at family at the airport. This isn't about fear. It's about choosing the right door before the wrong one closes. Most people don't learn these rules from a guide. They learn them standing in an airport line watching a departure board change. It's almost never because they forgot a document. It's because they misunderstood how the system actually works. Trips aren't usually lost to big mistakes. They're lost to small assumptions made weeks earlier, when there was still time to choose differently. That's why this channel exists. Subscribe now, not because you're worried, but because learning this after a trip is canceled costs far more than learning it now. And one simple question before we continue. Have you ever had a trip delayed or canceled because of documents? Yes or no? Passport photo requirements. Silent killer. Here's one of the quietest reasons applications stall, sometimes for weeks without anyone noticing. The passport photo. It sounds simple, but online renewal has no margin for error. The system checks your submission against strict standards, and even small deviations can trigger a rejection. First, JPEG format. The image must be digital, not a scan of a printed photo, and saved in the correct file type. Second, square dimensions. Your face must fit perfectly inside the frame. Too tall, too wide, or cropped awkwardly, and the application is flagged. Third, plain white background. No walls with shadows, curtains, or patterns. The system, and later human review, expects uniform clarity. Fourth, neutral expression. No smiles, frowns, or raised eyebrows. Every facial feature must be clearly visible and unaltered. Fifth, no shadows or obstructions. Glasses, hats, stray hair, or anything casting uneven light can stop the process before it even starts. It seems minor, almost invisible, but it's a silent gatekeeper. Many applicants submit everything else perfectly and fail because of this. Payment and confirmation. Once your form and photo are ready, it's time to pay. And this step is more than a transaction. Payment is handled entirely online with a credit or debit card. There's no paper check, no in-person verification, no middleman. After submitting, you should receive 2 emails. The first confirms a pending payment. It's a signal that your application has been received but is still in process. The second confirms the payment is complete. Only once this arrives is your application officially moving forward. If either email is missing, don't ignore it. A single absent confirmation can create silent delays, leaving your passport in limbo. Double-check your inbox and spam folder before assuming everything is fine. This step may seem routine, but attention here prevents the kind of delays that quietly derail even perfectly filled applications. critical warning: passport invalid after submission. Here's the part that stops almost everyone in their tracks. Once you click Submit on your online renewal, your current passport is immediately invalid. It doesn't matter if it looks perfect. No creases, no damage, no missing pages. The system has deactivated it the moment your application enters processing. That means under no circumstances can you use that old passport to board a plane, cross a border, or even as identification for international travel. Take a breath and let that sink in. This isn't theoretical rule. It's a hard stop. One click and your travel document is gone in the eyes of the law. Understanding this is what separates smooth renewals from last-minute airport cases. Mistake here and weeks of planning can unravel before you even leave home. Processing times and reality check. Now that the application is submitted, the next question is always, how long until I have my new passport? For routine online renewals, the State Department estimates 4 to 6 weeks. That's the processing alone. Once you add mailing time back to your address, a realistic buffer is closer to 8 weeks. Compare that to traditional mail renewal using Form DS-82. Standard processing runs 3 to 6 weeks with an option to expedite in 2 to 3 weeks. And if your trip is urgent, standard timelines no longer apply. That's when appointments at regional passport agencies or professional expediting services become necessary to secure a passport within days. Understanding these timelines isn't about fear, it's about planning wisely. Expecting online renewal to be instant is the fastest way to stress and last-minute scrambling. This is where preparation meets reality, and where travelers who plan ahead avoid surprises. Before we wrap up, a few final points that can save you time and frustration. If you encounter issues logging into login.gov, there's only one place to go: their support team. No third party can fix it for you, and attempting shortcuts can risk your account and your application. If the State Department requests additional information, respond within 90 days. Miss that window and your application could be voided entirely. Remember what online renewal is and what it isn't. It's paperless, it's convenient, but it's also slower than many expect. That doesn't make it bad, it just means choosing the right path matters. Here's a thought to close with. If this video saved you from one costly mistake, imagine what the next one might save you from. Subscribe now, and before you decide, check out the DS-82 walkthrough link below. That way you know every option and every risk before clicking submit. Choose the path that fits your situation. Be prepared, be accurate, and your passport and your plans stay safe. Safe travels.